we'll come back on camera when it's time, and you can ask the.
Yeah, we'll do a little intro first, Rick.
Okay.
And talk to the people, see what they're up about, and then we'll flip over to you guys.
Sounds great. Okay.
So there's our deck.
How's everybody doing?
Doing well.
Hey, Malcolm.
Hello, hello.
Good day. Morning or afternoon, wherever you're located.
Yes, that is the appropriate response. I can't believe it's 1 o'clock. What were you gonna say?
Depends. Like we have folks on our teams which are even at night now.
Everywhere. So, how's everybody's week going?
Good here. We don't have snow yet. I'm happy
You missed
about
all
that.
the snow conversations, Malcolm.
Yeah.
I did, yeah.
Checking in on what's on the ground.
Does anybody actually have snow? Oh, sure as hell hope not.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Out west,
It's-
Montreal.
It's all nice, and the snowplow already passed once this morning.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Way
So if
too
I can
early
ask
for that.
everybody to put your camera on to get things rolling, no matter what haggard state you may think you're in, just to do some networking.
Who all do we have? I haven't even looked at the list. We got 10.
And so far.
And Gene. Nikolai. There's Glenn.
Good day to everybody.
And by the way, really
Hi.
quickly, kudos, thanks, Diane. You didn't know, but I'm a follower on your side, so you helped me in a couple of my projects.
Diane did? I think she froze. Oh no, she's there.
Oh, I'm back. Had a froze for a moment.
You better restate that, Jean, because I don't know that she heard that.
No, the only thing I said is like I'm picking ideas from your site, and thanks a lot. Great ideas there.
I'm guessing it is Dion Taylor that you're
The other one.
following.
Oh yes.
That's another human.
Oh, different human, same name. Okay, small world.
She says thank you, I'm sure. And
Yes,
happy to help.
Okay, I'm gonna write it. I'm gonna write to her right now.
She's on Dion. She's Dion Taylor, Dian, no E. She goes Dion. Yeah.
We confuse a lot of people, the two of us.
Exactly. Okay, let's go a little round table here. Say hello to everybody. My name's Rick McCutcheon. I'm one of the organizers of this user community. I'm a CRM MVP and do a lot of work with ISV partners. I'll throw over to you, Malcolm.
I appreciate that. I'm Malcolm McCauley. I'm a long-time participant, if you will, and have recently been working with Rick and Diane to coordinate these. So had some good conversations at Summit for, I don't think anybody here, but some good conversations, people sharing some feedback. So some interesting insights on topics for the future. We'd love to hear them from you. Yeah, glad to be here. Hope to hear some engagement. Just for the context, we always structure the first 30 minutes or so just as open forum discussion, as if we're old friends, catching up and seeing what's going on, and then we dive into content from there. Diane, how about over to you?
Hi, everyone. I am Diane Taylor. Have the pleasure of working with Rick and Malcolm for these monthly meetings. I'm a manager of implementation and adoption at Synergy Credit Union, so an end user of Dynamics, and just excited to be part of this group. I've learned so much throughout the years from this group and other user groups, so happy to be here.
Maybe we'll say hello to our friends from XRM Vision next. So who wants to say hello from the presenting team?
I can start. My name is Rick Bojahra, and I'm the Director of Hyperautomation at XRM. and we're so pleased to be part of the meeting today. I was actually part of the CRM UG in Vancouver for a while when I was working out of Vancouver, which was great. I worked for the world's largest water park manufacturing company there and was director of IT globally.
Excellent. And what is hyper? What is hyper automation?
Hyper automation is basically doing things fast, of course, because the word hyper is in there, but it really comes down to doing things like Power Platform, RPA, robotic process automation in any way, as well as I have a super strong background in process automation and process mapping. So we do a lot of work in that area. John and Ram, who are on the call with me, are experts in field service and CRM and everything Dynamics. So I'll let them introduce themselves. But hyper automation is doing it fast and making differences for your organizations in a rapid deployment methodology.
Right. Jean.
Normally through continuous improvement, like digital transformation through continuous improvement.
Jean Lefrançois, solution architect, XRM. I've been there for 6.5, 7 years now. But I've been through the Dynamics platform since 29 and 26 as a user. So I've seen the increments over the years. And the fun part is what we're presenting today. I was one of the first fellow in Toronto when Field One was acquired. So quite a way out about that product. And like Rick, doing a lot of hyper automation, a lot of dynamics also on my side. I've been around pretty much every project, so we're having fun here. Ram.
Thanks, John. Hello, everyone. My name is Vidhyaram, and you can call me Ram. And I've been with XRM as a functional architect. And it's been a year now with them. And as part of my experience, I think I've had a chance to implement a few field service implementation, and that's one of the reasons why I'm part of today's discussion. And the CRM UG is something I've been following them. I think I should say last year. I did attend an event, of course, an online event. So last year, I do remember. And yeah, happy to meet to everyone here and looking forward for today's discussion then.
Thanks. How about over to you, Nico?
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Hey guys, name's Nikolai Tadla, Nico for short. Been in the CRM space since the end of version 1, started doing actual implementations with version 3. I'm the principal consultant and owner at oneconsult.net. And that's about it.
Yeah, let's talk about version 1. Do you know anybody that deployed that to anybody? So
we've done evaluation at version 1, and we said no, not ready.
No, not yet. It's not quite soup yet. Okay,
Yep.
Who else do we have here? Glenn Howie. And Glenn, will you be available this year to play the bagpipes at our December meeting? That's what we need to know.
Yeah, if anyone remembers that treat from the last time I did that, well, maybe it was not too excruciaing, but yeah, I'm still a bagpiper. I still play occasionally. I'll be playing this Saturday, of course, in front of a cenotaph for Remembrance Day. But I've been a Dynamics CRM practitioner for just about as long as anybody, maybe even beating Nico there for a little bit, because I look at the certification site and I still have my version 1 installation certification recorded. So
maybe you're the only one that got it to install.
Yeah, well, you know what? We tried to install it once. I think it was kind of a failed exercise. And, just waited, hopefully for the version 1.2, which came out, which we did that. So it has been a fun ride. And I see I see a couple of, I won't say old faces, old friends here. Good to see you again.
Okay, thank you. And so we will let you know about the December. When COVID first kind of came out, we had our online Christmas party. And we had various members with various talents, and Glenn really knocked our socks off with his bagpipe playing of many Christmas carols, so that was good. Okay, who else? Somaya Shri.
You're still on mute.
Still on mute, Samaya. Maybe going to stay on mute. All right, who else do we have? We haven't talked to. Felix Carrier. No? All right.
Can I go next? Amit,
You sure can, Emmett.
Yes.
Fire away.
Hi. Actually, hi, Amit. I'm Amit Doda. I'm having total 12 years of IT experience, including 9 years of Microsoft Dynamics 365 CRM. So I have worked with Accenture, PwC, Deloitte as a Dynamics 365 implementation and basically providing the implementation. 365 CRM implementation and consulting services to the client from different domains, which includes manufacturing, consumer goods, customer service, and the banking sector. So I recently shifted to Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, and this is my first interaction with you. Happy to be a part of this team where I can share my experience with the field service and can learn from your experience. Actually, I have done 2 field service implementation as a part of my previous assignment. Thank you.
Okay, beautiful. I think we've talked to everybody so far that's on. So this is all going to be recorded, and the members that can't join us will be able to listen. So Diane, I'll turn it back over to you if you want to get the meeting started.
All righty, perfect. So I think first up, Rick, is our Doug introduction. So I'll just bring that slide up, and if you want to go through that.
Mm-hmm. So we're part of the Doug Meetup Network. So we started this Dynamics community, I'm going to say maybe 11 years ago now, maybe 2012, late 2011. Had meetings at Microsoft head office for Canada in Mississauga for many years, and satellite meetings in, the Vancouver office, Calgary, Montreal, Ottawa. So we had a pretty good system going before COVID. And then since COVID, we've taken this online. So far, we've been a online meetup community. And we were part of the CRM UG user group summit. And they, over that same time period, sort of collapsed their member site. So we were kind of left floating around here, and we found the Doug user group, which started as the Vision user group in Europe a few years ago, but they've got several hundred meetups, and we moved our membership over to that meetup, and I think we'll continue on for the near future as a Doug. Doug has many programs, so we have the virtual user groups that we're involved with, but they're also their conferences. So they've got their big DynamicsCon, which many people have seen online. That's also a live event, and that's going to be happening in Denver coming up in May. So hopefully we'll be able to a few people out for that. Plus ongoing educational webinars and forums, meetups. They've got a pretty good YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and look at all the DynamicsCon content, it's all up on YouTube. And if you want to take some online courses, they have their team up program. So full feature, and they usually come on and present, but they weren't available. So I'm jumping in here. And you can see they're starting to fill out a fair size global network with 39 groups across the world and 9,700 members. So we love to see them continue to grow. And again, join us in Mile High City. A lot of fun. This is a smaller show. So for those that went to Summit a couple of weeks ago in Charlotte, that was like 1,000 people. And it was pretty good, wasn't it, Diane?
It was okay.
It was okay.
It was wonderful. Always is every year.
And it's a lot of fun. DynamicsCon's a lot smaller show. It's probably going to be 1,000 people in a smaller setting. Again, I don't know if anybody on the call was out at DynamicsCon with us, but it was also a lot of fun. So if you can get your company to send you to one of these conferences, absolutely go. It's fantastic. All right. Oh, we got $100 off promo code for Meetup 100. Virtual communities, we talked about this. Customer engagement, Business Central, Power Platform. So any of your ERP cohorts that you work with can join those organizations. All right, that's good here. On tap best practices for field service implementation. So I think our friends from XRM Vision are going to take the stage from here. So Malcolm, anything you want to add?
No, I threw in the chat just if oh, I did it. It's my pet peeve. Somebody says, "Do you have anything to add?" and the immediate response is no, and then you proceed into saying something. So
Yeah, I noticed
let me
that,
rephrase. Yes, I do have something else to say. I threw in the chat if anybody's interested in going to DynamicsCon. I just would love to hear who's going there. I know we've submitted some sessions. We're trying to coordinate, and it sounds like they're actually seeing growth. I think I heard the same number, around 1,000, but it sounds like they're trying to frame for some pretty expansive growth in the not too distant future. So I think I heard a number of, like, aspirationally upwards of several thousand people is the goal. So that would be cool to see, just to have another competitor in that space of the events. I also don't know if anybody went to the Power Platform conference, but that looked like a great turnout there as well, which is pretty cool. So that was it. Just throwing in the chat. Use the chat throughout today, everybody. If you have items or things that you want to connect with, great way to interact and socialize with your peers across the network.
I went to a great conference for Dynamics back before COVID in Nashville, Tennessee. I don't know if anyone else went to that conference. It was fantastic. It was probably one of the best events I've been to in a very long time.
Was that the summit? One of the summit?
It was a summit, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the summits.
Oh, Summit Nashville. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. It was awesome. We took 5 people from the org I was working for at the time, and super enjoyed the event. It was great.
They're getting back up there. Rick, did you hear a number? How many were at Summit? I heard about, well, they said 5,500, but I think that included the truck drivers and everything too. But
I think it was close to 4,500, 5,000.
Yeah,
and I think
so that's
probably
a good number.
Pretty close to what we had in Nashville that time. I think the biggest one was Phoenix, which we were getting in this around 6K and up. But it was fair size, and I think it's going to be pretty big next year too, because all the vendors that I talked to are super happy, and they all bought their booths already. So that's a good sign that it's going to happen. And it's going to be in San Antonio. So if you haven't been to San Antonio for a conference, not quite as good as Nashville, but it's pretty good place to go.
The music in Nashville was over the top, like going
Absolutely.
downtown, and oh my goodness, I went back personally after just to experience it again, because it was so amazing. Also, just so everyone knows, there's going to be a Power Platform conference in Vancouver coming up in March timeframe next year. So it's not official yet, but I know we're recording, but it may not happen, but it sounds like it's going to happen. So
who's organizing that, Rick?
It's hosted by Microsoft. They're planning on this Power Platform Microsoft Canada conference.
Oh wow! And who at Microsoft's organizing that?
I don't know the name of the person, but I'll forward it to you once I get the info.
Yeah, that would be great. So we can find out more to help promote it. Yeah. Maybe we'll have a meeting there. We'll all have to go.
Yeah, nice to have 2 things running at the same time, right? Have the conference and have something for yourselves there. Absolutely. As well. So you want us to get going here on the presentation?
Yeah, let's turn it over to your team.
Okay, perfect. Jean is going to do the presentation there. Perfect. So thanks a lot for inviting us. Yeah, you can see that? I can see it. So thanks a lot for inviting us, and we are so excited about being here and talking to you guys. We eat, breathe, Power Platform and Dynamics and field service every single day. That's what XRM does. So thanks a lot. You guys, I introduced myself earlier. I'm Rick Bojahra, Director of Hyper Automation. And Jean, if you can flip to the next slide. With me today, I have Jean Lefrançois, who's a Senior Architect with XRM, and Ram with us as well, who is Vidhyaram, who is one of our functional analysts. And both these guys are field service gurus. They help customers implement field service every single day. and they're working on products with organizations across Canada to do that. And we also do a lot of work with kind of like recovering bad states of people who have tried to do field service on their own, and we come in and we kind of help them through that. So thanks a lot again for inviting us to come along. So today we're going to kind of walk through best practices for field service implementation, and we've got about 16 slides altogether, and we're going to try and not go over time because I know there's going to be a couple of questions at the end, but we're going to go through some main functions of things you should always set up in field service. We're going to talk about integration best practice, and then minimum viable product and phasing your approach. And then we want to go through some of the new features that Microsoft just recently released so that we can show you some of those and you can get a little excited about it if you're a field service customer. Yeah. So take it over, Ram.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. So for us to get started with the field service, it is always, we need a place for us to get started, which is work orders. So because if you have noticed, work orders is something which actually has the problem statement or what exactly the client needs, and it also has what it takes to get to resolve that particular work order, and what are the equipments or products that we need to actually execute that order. And on top of this, we also have the most important piece of the commercials that we agree with. We have already agreed with the client. So the point I'm trying to make here is the work order becomes very critical for the field service implementation to get started. So let's say, for example, if we ask people to start creating the work orders on their own, say probably I'm going to say, there is a problem with this particular equipment. So this is how I create a work order. But whereas somebody like Rick, he would say, no, probably he would say noise in the machine, blah, 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 something like this. So what are we trying to do here is, we are trying to create a space for having an inconsistent data. So which means we are trying to compromise on the quality of data that we are trying to create here. So that's where the field service jumps in, and we have this provision of categorizing all these work orders. So for example, the ideal way to do that is, let's say an installation of an equipment or a machine is one such category, or we could have a separate category for repairing based on, let's say, a specific machine. Or it could be a general maintenance, or it's just a quotation purposes. We need a certain work order, so something like that. So the point here is, categorizing the work orders would allow you to have a consistent data based on which we could take certain leverage, say something like you could have a separate view for inspection work orders. So Jean, if you can show them the screenshot that we have, especially on the reporting, if you notice, so I can see the trend based on the type of the work order types, or it can be used for any analytics or analysis that we would like to achieve out of all these work orders. That's something which I would like to emphasize here.
That's a great best practice, Ram. The categorization of our work orders, it's something that, I know we've seen in other apps and Dynamics products and things like that, but inside field service, being able to categorize your work orders so that you can say this is a repair work order and it's this type of repair with your description and stuff like that. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to take advantage of all of these great reports and functions and analysis that you can do inside field service.
Absolutely. So what else we can actually do to make these work orders, or I should say, what else we can do something better with these work orders in place? So which is the next thing, which is more about the templates. So think about we have work orders wherein they have the provision to have multiple templates, wherein we should be able to specify the duration and what are the service tasks and what are the common resolutions for these types of templates. So if we have this handy, so what would happen is the more templates that you have, the more consistent your data becomes. So the question is, how are we going to have these templates? So the easiest way to do that is probably you could think on the lines of error codes in a machine. So you have one error code, probably you have one template ready. You have a customer complaint saying there is too much of noise or a temperature from an equipment or a machine, then that's your second template. So if there are any even specific procedures, like you may have to do a performance testing or a stress testing, this becomes another a template. So having said all these, what are the benefits that we think we can take out of the template-based approach that field service has? So one is the standardized process. So which means no matter what, which technician comes to the site, so everyone is going to follow the same set of procedure, because it's going to be there always, and it's going to be consistent for anyone who is going to address the work order. And similar way, if a technician is able to find something as an improvement or an enhancement to a service that he has provided, the minute he updates the template, the revised version is available for the entire organization across the geography. So that's the best part. So one person's experience, we are trying to have it across the organization so that the client can get benefited from the template-based approach that we have. And on top of all this, because we have a work order and the templates which are being defined in the system. So what are we trying to achieve here is we are trying to create a data so that we can do certain analysis. So which means the history of an issue are completely being, you can perform an analysis. So you can have a trending forecast of how or what type of issue is actually happening. So it's more of you're trying to create a database or a data set so that you can understand what's actually happening in your service or that you're providing to your client, or even to a level of an assets that the client is actually maintaining. Yeah.
So Ram, I love the idea of templates. I think it's really great. So when we have a service type that needs to be done, for example, like an HVAC company that comes in, they can say, hey, it's the fall service, or it's the spring cleanup, or whatever they're doing, or other companies can have other templates. I mean, it would have really solved the problem that happened to me last week, where I had my HVAC system serviced and they forgot to replace the filter. So, right. And so, having a incident type that they could have put in that had standard practices, standard items to be completed by the techs would have solved that. I'm sure would have solved that problem.
Yeah, definitely, yes. So, now that we understand, what we can do about with these templates and with this work order. So I think we should also understand, what it needs to take to understand and set this up within the field service, product. So I should say, there are 4 major things that we should keep in mind. So which is like, the product, service task, and resolution. So what is a product? So which is a material or an equipment which is required by a technician in order to execute that particular work order. So it's basically a physical item. And then what is a service? So that's the labor which a technician is rendering. So that's what we have it as a service. And what are the service tasks? So these are the basic checklists that a service technician has to perform, saying that, all right, I have done this. OK, what's the next step? OK, this is how I'm supposed to do. So which means we are having a breakup of what exactly needs to be done as part of the particular service that he's providing. And of course, last one is basically, the steps that a technician has followed in order to close or resolve this particular work order. So what I would say as an best practice here is, let's say that exists a difference between all the 4. So as an implementation partner, we have to consider, or we have to help client to help them understand that is a difference, and probably that's something we might have to spend more time on during the discovery call that we are having as part of the implementation, I should say.
Hey, Ram, I think the most confusing out of this is really the service and service task, right? We all know what products are, it's a physical item that we're going to install or use or sell. But can you spend just a little more time talking about service and service tasks so that we can kind of get a better understanding of the difference between those two for us?
Sure. So let's say service is let's say service is something what we are trying to achieve, and service task is the actual steps that somebody has to follow in order to achieve the result. Or in other words, let's say service is what providing an installation of a HVAC machine. That's the service that I'm going to provide. And whereas with the service task, in what are the inspection steps that I'm going to do? So let's say, for example, as part of service task, we can also have the inspection plan. So let's say this is what I have to do as part of the service task. All right, I have to identify what type of system is this, what type of maintenance that I need to perform. So did I check the condenser oil? So what is the condition of it? And basically I'm making observation based on certain templates that I have, or certain tasks that I need to perform. So this is where this is the prime difference between the service task and the service itself. And one thing which I also would like to add up here is the inspection plan. What you're looking at right now, that's going to be a great touch point because we are going to have all the observations captured by the technician. And if it's necessary, we can also add certain automations around it. Say, for example, if the meter reading is between a range, then probably you can trigger an email notification, or you can actually have certain other tasks created based on the observation that's being made. Because in an example of an hospitality, hospitals, let's say if there is like life sensitive equipments which needs to be tracked, then it needs to be given a proactive alert message to the team members so that they can make some necessary actions out of this. So this is how I would say the service and the service tasks are different.
That's great. Thanks, Ram. I noticed here right on the screen, I know I'm harping on this, but clean and replace filters right on there, right? So if my HVAC company had some good service tasks in their job, that filter that I had to replace myself an hour after they left would have gotten done, right? So, and I love the fact that the services, you can put a service in, and John's going to talk about this in a few minutes, but the service is great because we can use it to be like automatic billing of a certain, like it's $35 to do this, or you can bill by the hour based on services, right? So the combination of those two things together really, as our best practice for setup, are really going to help the people using field service to get the right results at the end of the day. Billing happening correctly for services we're providing, but a list of the things that our people need to do when they go and land at a customer site. So thanks for that. That's really good.
No problem. So now that we saw products are also part of the core aspects of the work order. So let's dive even more deeper to understand how the inventory and procurement works within field service. So inventory is always critical here, is because especially within the field service, anything that we consume or anything that we use should ideally be billed to the client. So, and there are a few advantages that field service provides because, let's say, when it comes to tracking, managing the inventory and procurement. The best example that I can think of is the mobile inventory. So that's something is I would say as a last touch point for the inventory movement, because from there on it's going to it's going to take get consumed, or it's going to get utilized at the client side. And similar way, I should also say there is other feature like converting a product or an item to a customer asset, or I should also add saying allocation of products to a work order. So these are the advantages that we have as part of the field service inventory. However, we should also keep in mind that the provision or the feature functionality which is available within field service may not be comfortable, or it may not scale up for an organization who has got more complex business process. So that's where the ERP system comes in place. So because the ERP systems are a bit more sophisticated and they have like more algorithms for, let's say, inventory replenishments, and they have other functionalities like blanket orders and more control in the procurement through vendor pricing and discounts. So quite often, as part of the field service implementation, you may have to do an integration between an ERP and the field service system. So I would like to share some of our experience around this on, let's say, when there is an integration with ERP and a field service, what are the things that we should actually, keep in mind? So the first thing that I would like to talk about is, which system is going to take the control. So, let's say we talk about two systems here, ERP and the, your field service. So where is the single source of truth is going to be there, and which system is going to govern the integration? And that's something we have to establish as part of the design that we have. And similar way, once we identify this, and then it comes to the actual roles and responsibilities of each of this system. All right, one system is going to do this, the other system is going to do that. So let's set those objectives upfront, clear, and then we actually get into the implementation itself. So that's where the next point is more about the integration itself. So do we really need to have a real-time synchronization of data between the systems, or can it be periodical basis? So again, even a complex business may not require a real-time synchronization. Sometimes it's going to be too much of luxury. That's when we say real-time integration. Again, there's nothing right or wrong in here. So it depends more of change is subjective question, I should say. It changes from one client to another client. And last but not least, I should also add, especially on the integration piece, how are we going to reconcile the inventory aspect? So that's something we should keep in mind while we say we are talking about, the inventory and procurement as part of field service integration with ERP systems. So yeah.
That's great. Ram, I loved about the fact that you're talking about single source of the truth, which is one of the things that's always, dear to my heart. Inventory procurement, integration with other systems. There was just a question in the chat about minimum configuration. And so there are things you're going to need to do as a company because you want to track things, you want integration for purchasing, or you don't want integration for purchasing, right? So yep. We're going to talk about minimum configuration in a few minutes, but what Ram is talking about here is if you do want integration, you need to think about single source of the truth, ownership, and reconciliation of that information. Great best practice here, Ram. Thank you.
And I just put a little bit of mileage on what Ram just said. Basic integration, as we know, is a good thing. What I've ventured into personally in the last couple of months was the virtual entities. Virtual entities been there for a while in Dataverse, we all know that. But what came up lately is the data source for Business Central and Finance and Operation came out, and it come now out of the box. So directly from the app source, you can get the link directly in there to upload solutions into the system, link Business Central or Finance and Operation with field service or any other Dataverse module. And the good part about that, and one thing we used it for a finance and operation project, was basically to take the product information and tie it directly into the Dataverse environment. So that would be good also for products into field service. Depends what kind of information you need. If it's only to push back an order back to the ERP system, that's a good way to do it because you're not going through. And I'm using products because everyone knows that products to set up, it's a nightmare. Like there's a lot of entities to put, there's a lot of work to be done. So by going to virtual entities, you can use it fairly easily, bring the data back as the usage and return it back to the ERP. The good part about this feature now, instead of the good old virtual entities we knew, it's full CRUD. So that means that be careful and be mindful when you install it and be very, very mindful on the security because you can modify stuff directly in Dataverse, so in your field service of the ERP site. So just be careful what you're doing on that. But for reading and updating information, it's a great, great tool. Beware of one thing. Yeah.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead. No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention the last little point there. The preview portion about Business Central. FNO's been there for 6 months, official in GA. The Business Central depends what kind of source of truth you're finding in Microsoft. Some place they call it for preview, some other they call it for GA. I'd say it's midway right now. It's probably by Christmas we should be all okay to use it in projects.
This is great to see. I saw someone throw up the clapping icon on the screen, which was awesome. We're doing a number of field service implementations with Business Central right now, and this has been just a true, gift from Microsoft to help with those processes. So, definitely throw that clap icon up for this if you're doing any work with field service or integration with any other system back to Business Central, which is great.
Just before we go to, and I love what Richard has put as a comment, but we're going to get there very, very soon. Just want to finish on a couple of tips and tricks on some features of field service. Really quickly, housekeeping in here. The statuses. In field service, there's a lot of status, substatus. What do we do with that? How do we use it, and so forth. And there's some sort of a confusion in there. So really, really quickly, rules of thumb here. The work order status cannot be modified because there's automation in the back end. So that's a given. But what the system gives us, and not only Microsoft, that comes out of the Field 1 days, where we have substatuses. So the substatuses enables us to complement the current status. So you have unscheduled, scheduled, completed, and so forth. So there's about 6 of them in there. And basically, if you need to complement them with different substatuses for your own process, that's a good way to do it. But don't over substatuses the thing, because too much is like not enough. At some point, go with the major process. So if you're at some point waiting, let's say a measurement from a client, put a substatus for that because we're on hold right now. But not every little tiny function in the process, sub-processes needs to be instigated in here. So that's mainly for the work order side.
Yeah, I think there's a real balance here when you're implementing field service, like where the statuses aren't really enough. It's why they implemented substatuses, but you can kill yourself with substatuses because the overhead of switching work orders from this status to this status to this status can really, really be laborious at times. And so you want to just put in substatuses that are truly something you need to track, like the one on here that's waiting for parts, for example, right? Like we can unschedule because we're waiting for parts. Now it's scheduled because the parts came in, because that's something super important in your process. Don't over substatus yourself.
So the work order status is for the back end. So for the calendar and for like the schedule board, to keep in mind. For the frontline worker, we have the booking status. So at that point, there's a different ball game here. And like what Rick was mentioning earlier on Ram's point, the booking status is mainly there for knowing like when the frontline worker is on the move, is getting on the site, he's moving off the site, or at some point he's going to take a lunch break or is going to do something. Those statuses are there to help to keep up with the time. So at some point when we're going to close that booking status, we have to account for all the hours that the technicians spend on time on site. So therefore, like I'm going to stop for a break, that stopped the timer. I'm going to come back and resume my work. That's going to carry on with the timer. And once you've completed, all these small times have been accounted for, and then we'll be able to pass it on to the ERP later on for invoicing.
That's great. That really ties into what Ram was talking about services versus service tasks, right? That's going to help us with our billing.
Yep, actually. And another point which is underlooked is mainly customer assets. Since the beginning of field service, Field 1, also, if I may mention it, customer assets been around. At the beginning, we had the unfortunate way that a customer asset needed to be tied to a product. Many years ago, Microsoft came out with that little button, Disable Customer Assets Validation. The good part about that button is you no longer need to tie it up to a product itself to use it. The unfurnished portion is that comes out unselected. So therefore, if you're not savvy in field service, you're going to believe that every customer asset needs to be tied on to a product, because every time you're going to create a customer asset, and you're going to point it to a product and a customer, it's going to pop up with an error and like there's no product, or that product's not tied to that customer. You're always going to get that error until that little nice box is unchecked. Also, by unchecking this, one project I've done is was a rental company. And at some point, they were renting goods to bring it back. So we use field service as a great deployment tool because they had to not only rent the tool, but they had to also deliver it on site. So at some point, we were coming out with a new work order to deliver over there. So what we did is we changed the ownership of that asset every time it was passing on hand. So it's another great tool to use field service for, and extend on the different processes field service can be used for. So that nice little button is hidden in the services settings of the work order booking. So at the beginning, so that should be whenever anyone install field service at once, should go through all these tabs of the service settings, and that is one of these hidden gem that we have on that setting there.
This is great, John, because this particular best practice or tip really is going to be dependent on the organization. I know if like my HVAC company, there's no way they're going to want to put in every make and model of every HVAC system in every house in their product database, just so they can create assets for it. In their case, they're going to use this. They're going to be able to create assets and not have it linked back to a product, which is super.
And now it comes to Richard's question. So the thing is, what Ram and I have spoken about for the last couple of minutes is that we need to start at some point. So the minimal viable product installation for field service should be looked into one way. For sure, if you talk to anyone that would like to use it, any customer that sees the entire tool, they feel at some point that they want it all day one. Crawl, walk, and run is probably the best approach in that case. So let's take a use case that of a smaller company. They don't have much resources, they don't have much budget, and not a lot of people, but they need a field service. Instead of like going the whole 9 yards all at once, this is what you need at minimal to start working with field service. So you don't need the bells and whistles of customer service or anything else. This is the minimal portion that you need to work with that. So the first thing you're going to do, you're going to import your customers list, so your client list within the system. And the idea behind these 8 items is mainly to help us implement field service in a way that it's functional, fairly easy, and like user enabled day one. So you don't spend half an hour for each work orders. So based on what Ram had said earlier, like the templating and all that, it's really important. So work orders type, work orders incidents, which are templates, set up minimal products and services and tasks into your system. So that's the bare minimum to do. Also create your bookable resources. So users and contacts, don't go with equipment or sites or anything like that. Go basically with the people you're going to put on the work orders directly day one. So for that, you're just going to put your users or contacts, and you're going to call them as bookable resource. That doesn't take much long time to do for a smaller company. Also, organization units. So if you have like subdivision, division, and all that, it's great to define everybody. Day one, you probably don't need that. You need to get a work order out, and to do that, you need a single organization unit. Organization unit is going to become important later on if you have multiple locations and you need to use geolocation to deploy your people directly from site to go to customer. You know exactly how much time it's going to take to travel. But organization unit day one, you only need the one there just to put on top of your work orders and get things ready. Same thing for the price list. I call it single price list. You don't need to go like haywire and say, okay, for that kind of customers, we'll have that price list, and that's going to come in time. Day one, you need one price list to get one work order out, get some product and services to it, and close them. And close them through resolution pre-made. Also, same thing, if you have 2 or 3 processes to look into the system, just look at 1 or 2 resolution at starter. Then give the rein to the client to say, okay, you're going to be able to build more resolution later on based on your experience. So 80-20. How much work you're going to put effort into the system is going to result into what you should use the most. So look at the biggest process you need to tame first and build those resolution, build those work orders incident towards that. Same thing for the work order status. The cranny little small thing can come up later. Use the one basically out of the box day one, unless you have like 1 or 2 more to add to this. but these should be the bare minimum in there. And the fun part is all that is set up, all that in the setting, and it's probably cramped up at the same location in the settings of field service. So just follow that small rule there and trying to start small and go bigger and bigger and bigger later on.
Hey, Jean, there's a quick question in the chat.
Yep.
With work order creation requires the service account information. Based on your experience, how would you manage work order creation for an individual customer or contact? Do you suggest customizing the work order creation process? So I'm assuming the person didn't want to have an account or a contact for every work order in this question. We're talking about minimum viable product. Personally, if I was doing work orders, I think I'd want to set up accounts and contacts for the people I'm working for and doing work for, but there must be a situation. Can you speak to this, or generic customer, generic account?
Actually, generically, the way we want, actually, it's not a generic. You want to point out a work order to a client for future reference, because later on, with other features that Ram has spoken to earlier, you want to resort that work order result to a client and to see the history of building that history back with your client. If you don't already have a customer list day one, whenever you're going to create that work order, it's a good Dataverse product. It's a model-driven app, so you can create on the fly that client there directly with the minimal information with a quick create. So that could happen there, but I wouldn't go with a general customer, because and that always goes, also depends the kind of business we're looking into. But most of the time, actually, all project of field service that I've been to, we had always customers with a service account. And usually that service account is tied directly to that main there. The question to ask, and that probably going to come to the Q&A later on, and I'd like to get your point on that, is some company have their service companies, but some other companies that service individual, like you, Rick, earlier. So in their system, are you an account, or you're a contact, or you're both? It's always come back later on to what am I going to do with the data for marketing? But always keep in mind, and we can open that one question for later on, and I'd like to get your take on that one. But in my mind, the value of a database comes with the quality of the data that you do have. And this is one of the most valuable information you can have, is the customer information to follow through on history.
I agree. One of the outcomes of implementing field service is the quality of delivery and the that you're giving to your customers. So you're giving them on-time delivery of services. You're standardizing the products that you're delivering and the services you're delivering to them. But at the same time, you want to be able to leverage that database for growing your business. So having contacts, having accounts, having those kind of things in your database and building that as you're going can only help. Anyways,
that comes back, Rick, to the good old days when I was in the ERP side with a really small ERP, where we didn't have a choice to use only what was at end in the fields. We couldn't create any more fields in there. So at some point we had to be really, really creative and say, okay, we're gonna have generic customers. Reflecting back in years, wasn't good for those companies.
No, I agree.
And on top of that, like, we have the minimal viable installation there. But after that, there's a lot of bells and whistles that you can add up to there. And Richard, one thing that I came across not later than last week, we're implementing a new customer for field service, and we're using exactly the same technique here. We're going to have like 3 or 4 work order types, and like keep that really minimalist. And while we're implementing, one question came to the customer and said, yeah, we have a small customer service team, 2 people. How can we follow on tickets with that? So we didn't start with the ticketing. However, by the time we get to go live, we're probably going to have that little thing in like phase 1A or phase 1.5 something delivery. So day 1, we're going to have a field service. Day 2, probably a customer service attached to it. But you don't need to have customer service in place to start working with the work orders. But one thing I've been through the years, and one thing that I saw that shouldn't be done, is don't try to modify or to over-engineer field service. Trying to use it as much as what it's supposed to be doing. That's going to help you for the future reference. We have one client that Rick was mentioning, like we're salvaging some projects back. One is the one project that we're having right now. They won't be able to take advantage of RAM. What RAM is going to show with what's coming up in the future release, because they've modified too much the forms and everything around field service. So they've all added a tons of relationship and stuff because they didn't want to go with the basic field service. So eventually you pay the price. So we're trying always to stick back. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Sean. I think this answered Richard's question, which was, hey, you don't need to have, you know, customer service and case management involved in your first phase of your implementation, right? You can go in, implement the base MVP for your field service implementation, and then you can add great features like geosynchronization, IoT, you know, agreements and things like that.
Definitely. Actually, one rule of thumb that I use is whenever we do new implementation, whatever process the client is already using, we're going to try to accommodate with those processes. But if the client never used IoT, don't put that burden on top of that day one. That's going to come up later, and they'll know better what they want to use after they've tamed a little bit of the basic of field service. And there's a lot to it. So give yourself a chance on that.
100% agree. I come from a pretty strong IoT background, and you know, implementing IoT with triggers and, you know, automatically creating work orders and stuff like that from IoT responses can definitely be something that takes a while to implement and get right. So, but it has a phenomenal return on investment at the end of the day. So, but it's not something, unless you're using it today, that you'd want to do in phase one.
You're totally right. But you know what? Enough from the past right now. Let's look into the bright future. I'm going to pass it on to Ram to talk to us about a couple of nice little neat things which are coming up.
Sure. Thanks, Sean. So there are plenty of new features that Microsoft has lined up, and I should say they have spent some time on reworking on the user experience itself. So that's where the first thing, which is onto the side pane and the summary card. So if you look at the side pane here, it's not necessary for the user to get into the record itself. So it is basically an editable grid. So you don't have to navigate back and forth to update the status of the work orders. And even if you want to update a few other fields as well on the right side, wherein if you can get the summary of the work order itself. So that's the first feature specifically on the UI improvement. And the next thing is more to do with the summary card here. So here, if you see, even though there are a lot of data in it, so usually we will have multiple tabs around this. So instead of going through one by one, doing multiple clicks, so you have a summary, with some visuals to understand what exactly has happened within the work order itself. So that's another update that we are looking forward for. And the third one is more to do with the asset tree itself. So this is something pretty good because it's going to give you the structure of where and how many assets are with the tree hierarchy that you're looking at. So it's not just a list of records wherein you may have to think about it and then understand where these physical assets are. Rather, you have the tree hierarchy up here right in front of you, so you know where they are located and how many are there. So this is something new. And the other new UI feature is more to do with the products and the services. So usually, like what I said earlier, you have tabs. OK, I have to open up a product tab, add more products, change the quantity, things like that, and move on to the next tab, which is service. So with this new feature coming up, so all you have to do is be there in the same screen and you will be able to add the quantity on the fly. And it's not like, the UI experience is going to be totally different on adding more services and products to it. So that's something pretty cool if you ask me about the new UI features. And in addition to that UI changes, I also understand that, for maintaining the technicians certifications or the documents, Microsoft is coming up with a new feature for this. I think it's by end of this month. I think we should have it in the preview, or sorry, in the general availability as part of the new feature lineup, John. So would you like to add anything more to it, John?
Oh, yes. And there's tons to it, but we won't have time to speak to everything. But just want to glance to those two topics there. The first one is the new mobile user enhancement. I don't know if any one of you had a chance to try the new field service mobile app. I did a little bit on my side. Not everything is out because a lot of new material is going to come out in March. It's called for March 2024. But out of that, those new, is the first one is the new experience of the environment. So you probably have seen that portion that I took from my cell, from my environment. So neater button, nicer stuff, much easier to, same thing as the web experience, much easier to add new quantities and modify your products, your service, modify your times. All that should come out sometimes during the winter. Other better functions also is compress pictures. So whenever you take a picture from your cell directly within field service, when it's going to get saved, it's going to get compressed to be sent back to the database. So if you don't have a great bandwidth or a great provider on your mobile, you won't need to be charged like huge pictures. You'll only send what you need around that. Also for the booking strategy, right now you have all your bookings based as a calendar. They're coming out with an agenda view. Just saw a small preview on that, but the agenda view would provide you like, these are my next 3 bookings, even though they're not within the same day. You can have some sort of a view which is going to show you like what's your next job to be done directly there. So to enhance the profiling of easing the workload of the frontline workers. Also, the offline portion, that's another good addition to be, which was added there. Offline's been there for a while. We're just adding 2 new components, which I personally going to be using. The first one is to be able to upload only whenever you're on the Wi-Fi. So I'm going to save on my minutes of my provider. And the second one is like the interval of offline upload. So right now, the every time you're coming back to a web online setup, the system always updates. You'll be able to add an interval. So let's say you can update every 15, 20, 30 minutes instead of like every time there's a change whenever you have web availability. So that's going to save also on the device itself. On the Copilot side, that's the trendy words lately. And I know you guys can have something in December about Copilot. Well, Copilot only for field service. Here are a couple of things that I've tried because you could not try everything because things are come out during the winter. The first thing is the experience out of Outlook. And the experience I've had is first thing you need to upload the app to your Outlook, which is a field service preview app right now. So whenever you do start it, it goes the same place as the Dynamics pane in Outlook. It shows as this one. And like if you're within the home, the first thing is you have Copilot to help you create work orders. So I've experienced it a little bit directly from an email. You're going to ask Copilot to read that email and say, okay, build me a work order if I do have the information. So it depends how your the person that sent you the email is going to format that email. Some information are going to glance directly to a work order directly in there. The second portion also, which is really, really fun about that app, is I see all the work orders I'm involved in with. So it would show directly on the app itself. From there, I can open the work orders. I'm not going to show all the cranial little stuff, but I can modify the work order directly on the fly directly there, or I can view the schedule and schedule the work orders. Or if I cannot attend as a frontline worker, or if the dispatch use that tool there directly from Outlook, they'll be able to reschedule directly live from that app. So, and the system with Copilot is going to ask you, like, provide you here are the other people available to take your spot if you cannot attend that inspection right now. So that helps a lot to manage. So instead of managing directly from field service, you're going to be managing directly also in there. And there are different links to bring you back directly in the schedule board and field service back and forth. So I think experience at time is going to come tell us that it's a good tool that's we're going to have it on hand. Last but not least, the work order AI recap. I cannot wait personally to see that thing. It's going to be like to help you at the end of your work orders to recap, summarize everything, and put a conclusion to the work orders done by Copilot. I couldn't see it myself because there are 2 things that I found out and I'm sharing with you that you needed to do that. Right now, that tool is available only in a US or UK control environment. So a data center based on those two locations. And second thing, you need also to have a paid subscription to take advantage of that one. So trial environment won't surface that tool. So don't try to look at it if you're in the trial environment. You need to be in the paid environment in the US, and that's going to help you there.
Thanks a lot, Sean and Ram. Those are great new features that are coming out, and I know there's more. There's a lot more. So please, you know, when you guys get the copy of this presentation, go and look at the links and learn and look up some of the new stuff. So let's summarize a little bit. I know there was a question about mobile apps and stuff like that. Microsoft is working super hard in the background to bring their mobile app up to spec, especially for offline use. And so, you know, you're going to see some great new features coming out. It's going to really come down to your own business's requirement as to which mobile app for field service you're using. So let's just summarize really quickly. So our first best practice was categorize your work orders. Make sure that you've got good categorization so you can have, you know, take advantage of a lot of the analytics and tools that were there. Use templates to get standardized delivery. Don't have that filter problem, you know, and have services and service tasks and products that are associated with your templates. Understand work order setup. Understand what the difference is between a product, a service type, a service task, and a resolution are, and make sure you utilize those correctly in the software when you set it up. Don't mix them up. Don't think you know about it. You know, really research it. Bring a partner in like XRM to help you out with understanding those. If you're going to be doing integration with your ERP system and procurement, make sure you understand that single source of the truth. Which one of those areas, which product, which part of the integration is going to own the data, which one's going to update the other one with data, and what's the reconciliation and the period of update between the two. John talked about leveraging virtual entities for integration as well, which is awesome for just getting data back and forth, especially now with Microsoft releasing Business Central, and F&O was already out there for virtual entities. Great way to do integration without a lot of heavy lifting. And we talked about leveraging status types. So you want to make sure you have an order substatuses, but don't overdo it. Keep it simple and add them as you need them. And booking statuses as well is going to help you with billing. It's going to help you with understanding where your staff are. So again, don't overdo it, but get the statuses that you need to run your business. The next one was customer assets. John showed us that great flag for separating products and customer assets from one another. Sometimes your business is going to absolutely need to have a product associated with a customer asset, and other times they're not. So understand that flag and the ramifications of it. Don't try and do a big bang with every feature possible in the software. Go on a phased approach. Start with the simple MVP version of your field service implementation. You don't have to have other apps involved. You can really simplify your field service. And then once you've done that, plan a phased approach where you're going to bring in those other super valuable return on investment features like agreements and knowledge bases and geo mapping and things like IoT and integrating with sales and things like that. So plan it out in a phased approach. And then our last best practice was to leverage new features. Test them out in your UAT or testing environment, and then push those into production as you see the value for them. So again, thanks so much for your time today. And we'd love to open the floor up for questions if you have any.
That was a great overview, guys.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
Actually, to open the floor, I'm going to answer Richard and Rick's comments about the RESTCO versus mobile on the Microsoft side.
Mm-hmm.
There are still some differences. Like I understand that I've been using RESTCO before, and now I'm more on the Microsoft mobile application only. There are still some valuable functions that RESTCO provides or can be providing that Microsoft does not just have yet out of the box readily available, or that you need, like say, for the wiping to a distance your data field service? Resco does that within the application. On the Microsoft side, you need to instigate Intune to do the exactly same stuff. So there are some difference between, but the gap is getting shorter and shorter over time.
Yeah, I'll just comment on that, Gene, because I was at the conference in Spain with 100 of their corporate accounts. So where they're, the discussion was really around the Microsoft product is, companies that have, the enterprise companies that have a lot of offline functionality, right? So whether people are forestry and mining, let's say they're servicing boilers and they're going down in the basements of organizations where they need a robust tool offline. Those are the ones that tend to choose the Resco application. As well, many of the clients that were on field service. So for people who don't know Resco, it was the original field service application Microsoft licensed. Anybody who's got a heavily customized mobile application, most of them stayed with Resco, just because the overall cost of redeveloping all the system customizations to Power Platform. And I think we're seeing, the licensing side of things too, with the data consumption costs going up with Power Platform compared to, what you're able to do with it with the Resco data. So not saying that.
No,
Resco,
I think Resco is a good platform. To give you an idea, we don't have any more Resco in our farm. Last year when what was it? Not Mandarin, but I don't recall what was the code name of that application for a while. But that came out like that the support from Microsoft came out last August 2022. But beside that, like I remember in the days when I implemented Resco, we had a lot of flexibility for the forms, the views, offline capabilities. There's a lot of materials in there to be exploited, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you said it, Rick, and that's that, like if you have a lot of this, right? Like if you have a lot of offline, if you have a lot, like it's really going to come right now to the features and functions of the two different versions of the mobile app, and you're going to have to pick the one that's going to meet your need. Like, you all know what your unique requirements are for your organization, and that's going to be the choice between the two. Microsoft is adding great features, and they're trying to compete, and they're trying to be, an amazing product. But, the other one had a good advantage.
Yeah, and there was one client presenting at the conference who had their whole team on iPads, right? And these were field service people that had to do a lot of contract management and a bunch. So they had written all these applications for their iPad. So, you get into those situations, and the back end wasn't CRM, the back end was Salesforce.com. So even in that circumstance, like, there's different options available.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions?
I have a quick one. That was a great overview. Appreciate all the insights. You've kind of alluded to certain things throughout the presentation, but I'm curious your thoughts. What's the single biggest challenge you see organizations face when they're sitting down to really dig into and start to deploy field service? What's the biggest problem that they face?
John, Ram, you guys want to tackle that one? I can tell you what I think it is, but I'd rather the experts.
Yeah, you all may have different answers, and that's fine.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but actually for myself, what we came out is the challenge of understanding the usage of what Ram has mentioned earlier, product, service, and service task. Trying to get too much in the same plate day one, and trying to mingle amongst everything. And I love the comment, because we should have rise it up a little further, but in the product environment, you have the non-inventoried and inventory products, plus the service, all that tweaking. Actually, for my experience, most of the client I went and we started, they never had a field service app on their ends before. So they were either a shop with papers, or they were a shop with Outlook and Excel. So you have to bring them back to the basic. Okay, this is what you need tomorrow. And how do you want to build your data for future reference? Because most of these companies, they're in a repeat business. So the advantage of being a repeat business with a good data is you'll be able to maximize with less efforts.
Yeah.
So that's
Just
one of the struggle. Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead,
and just to add to what Jean was talking about, so wherever or whenever we do the field service implementation, every client will have the humongous data. So as a implementation partner, so I think we should be the one taking those initiatives to help them identify, hey, these are your products. So again, they may not give us the answers what we need, but I think that's where we, as in the implementation providers, we have to make those differences to help them take a leverage of what the system is, because the minute you step in, it's going to be a humongous data. It could be on a spreadsheet or files and files that you have across an organization, no matter whether it's a small and medium-sized enterprise or a big company. But the challenge is going to be the data that they have, how it needs to be segregated. So probably that's I think it's the biggest challenge that I have personally come across. Yeah.
Malcolm, I was agreeing with Jean, but one of the other things that I find is that some of the terminology inside the app, like inside field service, is definitely like, who would have thought that, categories were roles,
Right.
like, and things like that. Like they kind of make sense, but like classification, what is that, And so the same thing with products, services, service tasks, the same thing he said. I think the people, the one of the hardest things for customers is to wrap their head around the terminology. So, we tend to have like a cheat sheet, or I do when I'm doing stuff like this, where I'll say, okay, this is this. Like, what do you call it, right, in your business? Okay, when you need to go, add a role to a employee, well, you go here, kind of idea. Where do I put employees in? Oh, they're rebookable resources. Okay, like it's just, the terms.
Glossary of terms. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The glossary of terms. And then how do you, definitely those product things we talked about in that one slide are a gotcha.
And Rick, in the glossary section, the most confusing one is the work order incident. Everyone asks me like, yeah, we're going to have incident, but we don't have customer service. How are we going to do that? We don't. No, it has nothing to do. I don't know why Microsoft hasn't renamed it or rebranded like work order templates, because they're really templates. And that blows my mind. The only thing I can think, because I'm not in that circle, but the only thing I can think is whenever you're open a case, and within the case, you're going to select a work order incident, so the work order can be built automatically based on that case. That's the only logical link that I do have. But whenever you're bringing, like even some of our staff, which we're trying to acquaint with field service, first thing they ask me, yeah, why incident there? And we always come back to like, okay, go back to the glossary. This is what it's used for. And I think that's a one question also in the certification. So if you haven't studied well, you're just won't pass that one.
They're too busy renaming products to worry about field level changes.
Like exactly. We don't care about the tables in projects, right? In programs. They just care about, field service is going to be called, field, something next week. So it's great. But yeah, I think glossary, understanding those database criteria, like these guys said, and then the whole experience of mapping an organization's current workflow into field service. Those are the things that are tough, right? Like, so, we do it, people do it with a clipboard on the wall, right? Literally in their dispatch office. They're doing it with Excel. They're doing it with, all these different things that we come across. An Access database they built 15 years ago, and so trying to take them from those things over to this new way of thinking with this glossary can sometimes be very challenging.
Oh, the change management is always one of the hardest. The technology pieces we can make work. It's the people change that seems to be the hardest for sure.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Good insights, guys. I appreciate that.
And Malcolm, in the change management, here's a good kicker. We have a client right now, we're implementing their second field service within the same business, because they have a partnership business and they have a manufacturing business. So there are two businesses within the same one. another partner instigated that project many years ago, and they circumvented a lot of material from field service. And now we're implementing a second one. We're trying to stick as vanilla as possible. And we're told every day, but that's not how these guys are functioning right now. Yeah, okay, I understand that. Let's stick back to the basic and we'll fix the other one later on. So
Yeah.
those are different challenges that we do have.
Fair enough. Good stuff.
It's like a CRM upgrade, right? Like, do you go from one version of CRM to the next version of CRM? Do you copy all your customizations over, or do you make everyone use it generic before you start that? You know, like there's always these considerations. So, well, thanks again, guys. Unless there's any other questions, we really, again, appreciate all the time we've had here.
Good stuff, guys. We appreciate it. We appreciate you taking time out of your schedules to be here and give everybody this overview. It is recorded for anybody who's watching this now and you're thinking, you know, hey, what was that second thing he said? And you want to go back to it. It will be posted to the Doug YouTube channel, so you'll be able to pick it up there. And if you're watching the recording, well, then clearly you've already found it, so you're good to go. Other than that, awesome. Any other closing comments or anybody from anything else? Going once. All right. Well, thanks again, XRM Vision team, for walking us through all that, and good chatting with everybody. We'll see you again. Rick and Diane, when's our next one? Do we have a December one scheduled?
December 14th.
Okay. So that'll be our
14th.
Christmas party. Is that what we're going to do, Diane?
We have a couple ideas for the 14th. Copilot was one of the topics, and then we have a Christmas party to plan as well. So
Copilot. What, they haven't talked much about Copilot. What's that all about?
I don't know. Well, I'm excited for December 14th to learn.
What is that? What is
that? I haven't. My gosh, if you're at Summit,
oh my
every time you
goodness.
turn around, it was everywhere.
Copilot is what's going to replace us, guys. Come
Right.
on.
The only other thing I have to add is I'm going to add a link in the chat of a form to fill out just to share with us things you want to hear about as we move forward and get content for the year coming up. If you want to share anything, if you want to learn anything, please take some time to fill it out. It would help us as we're planning 2024.
Awesome.
Hey,
Thanks,
Rick or
everybody.
Diane, can you download the attachment, the recording, and actually forward it to us? Because we may not have access to download it.
You can if you join the meetup.
Oh, well, we'd love to do that too. So
yeah, I will send the link once we get it done. We send it off to Doug and they get it put on their YouTube channel. It's a playlist for all the meetup meetings. So perfect. I can send a link out. I'll generally throw the link in this chat as well once it's ready.
No problem. That's great. Thank you again for the time.
Perfect.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks.
Take care.
Thanks, team.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.